Welcome to HitchPod, the podcast where we're watching every movie ever made through the lens of Alfred Hitchcock. This episode is from our Patreon back catalogue, originally recorded in June 2020 as the first instalment of a season of Hitchcock-esque films. It's David Mamet's 1997 con artist thriller, The Spanish Prisoner. If you enjoy this episode and want to catch up faster, or just want to hear what we're watching right now, you can always find us at patreon.com/hitchpod for $2 a month. Go on, pay the $2. Here's the episode.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
Want to hear one of my ideas for a perfect murder?
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Jumped in the play, you didn't know where you were. You gasped, but you didn't know.
I didn't jump, I tell you.
Well, here we are again.
Yes.
Recommend anything?
This is HitchPod, and this is a bonus episode. Usually in HitchPod, a podcast, we watch a Hitchcock movie every month or so, and today, though, in a special bonus episode, we're watching a Hitchcock-inspired movie. This one's been voted for by our supporters at Patreon. I'm Kat Jones and I'm here with Dan Libke, and the bonus movie we're talking about is a wonderful The Spanish Prisoner, directed by David Mamet.
Yes, it's we watched this last night, and it's certainly something. We're about to talk about it. So we'll start off as we always do. We'll just give you some basic info on the movie. As we said, the movie's name is The Spanish Prisoner. It was made in 1997, so definitely a post-Hitchcock movie. Its IMDb rating is 7.2 out of 10, and it's got a very good Rotten Tomatoes score of 89%.
Yeah, quite good there.
Yes, it's got some good reviews. One review I particularly liked was Chris Grundon from Film Journal International, and he said, somewhere Alfred Hitchcock is smiling, for The Spanish Prisoner is the most deliciously labyrinthine homage to the master of suspense in recent years. It's a very good homage, isn't it?
It certainly is.
We'll get to that. It didn't win any Academy Awards. It won a few, minor awards, or was nominated for them, but nothing particularly spectacular. You can get the movie. It's available via, the usual suspects. You can rent it on iTunes or Amazon or wherever you get your usual movies. Don't think it's on any streaming services, but nevertheless. It stars Campbell Scott. He plays Joe Ross. Rebecca Pidgeon, who plays Susan Ritchie. Steve Martin playing Jimmy Dell.
The criminal, the baddie.
The baddie. Felicity Huffman, who plays FBI agent Pat McCune, and several others, but they're the main actors. And the synopsis of the movie is: an employee of a corporation with a lucrative secret process is tempted to betray it. But there's more to it than that.
Right. Is there, though?
That's very vague, isn't it?
You know what? It doesn't sound very tempting so far. It sounds a bit like a company movie, a corporate movie.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's more interesting than that synopsis.
Certainly is, yes.
Would indicate. It did have some interesting taglines. There was like, "Who can you trust with $1 billion idea? Who can you trust?" And the other one was, "It's the oldest con in the book." So they were two taglines. Not particularly interesting taglines.
No, and it's also not the oldest con in the book. But anyway, it is though a drama. It is a mystery.
It's
a
definitely
thriller.
a mystery. It's a drama / mystery / thriller. As we said, it was directed by David Mamet, who's probably most famous for writing Glengarry Glen Ross. And he also wrote this movie as well. So writer and director.
And sometimes he writes and
Sometimes
directs,
he
and
just
sometimes
writes.
he just does one or the other.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think most of the time when he directs, he's written it, but a lot of the times he writes, but doesn't necessarily direct.
And he usually puts his family in it too.
Yes. Yeah. So certainly his wife in this particular movie.
So that's Susan Ritchie, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's hear the plot then, Dan, if you can possibly unravel this convoluted plot.
It's quite convoluted, and it's going to be riddled with spoilers any second now. So if you haven't seen this movie, I strongly recommend go away, track it down, watch it.
Now, if you haven't seen it, when you watch it, you need to have a pen and paper there and just try and note down all of the different homages to and tributes to Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and they're clearly very deliberate. So anyway, let's start this plot. Spoilers forthcoming. So we start with the hero of our story. This is Joe Ross. He's played by Campbell Scott. And Joe has invented this wonderful MacGuffin. And the MacGuffin is called the process. And it's some kind of mathematical formula, which we learn about from a presentation from Joe and his colleague, George. George is played by Ricky Jay.
He's the company lawyer, right?
A company lawyer, right. So George is played by Ricky Jay, who's a famous stage magician, apparently.
He's not that famous.
He's not as famous as he could be, no. Anyway, the process will apparently make the company enormous sums of money. We never find out exactly how enormous, but, lots of numbers. He writes it on the blackboard, and he writes for a long time. So I think we're led to conclude that there's lots of zeros in this sum of money, and presumably a digit in front of those zeros. Anyway, this is all takes place at some kind of company retreat in the Caribbean, where Joe and George and various executives and at least one secretary. This is Susan, who's Rebecca Pidgeon, who's Mamet's wife, as we pointed out. His first wife actually was in the first movie he ever directed.
I thought you were going to say his first wife was in this movie as well.
No, his first wife was Lindsay Krause, and she starred in the first movie he directed, which was House of Games, which was apparently another con artist kind of movie.
Yep.
So there you go. Anyway, well, they're all at this retreat, this corporate retreat, and while they're there, Joe meets Jimmy. This is Steve Martin's character. And Jimmy's very mysterious and very wealthy, and we don't really know an awful lot about Jimmy. They have a bit of an awkward first encounter with Jimmy not happy that their photograph's been taken of him. But the two slowly start to warm to one another, and some kind of friendship and or holiday romance commences. It's not particularly explicit whether it's a romance or just a friendship, but do you think that was just like the era?
I think that's all in your mind, Dan.
Maybe you don't.
If this was a Hitchcock, it would be a romance, right? If it was a Hitchcock, it would definitely be a hidden romance. I think the reason we think it's a romance is they do this weird cut, which seems like a stage place kind of thing, where you see them in the evening, and the next time you see them, it's in the morning.
First thing in the morning, yeah.
Which is that is code word for
they go off. They give lingering looks, and they head off to their rooms together. And then the next time we see them is in the morning.
It's 1997. I'm 95% certain this is not a romance.
All right, I'm less convinced. I think there's some.
If it was 1935, I would say yes, and if it was 2005, maybe, or 2015.
Yeah. Anyway, the friendship and or romance, one of the two. Regardless,
this is a very weird take on this movie already.
Anyway, regardless, Joe decides it's time to head back to New York. So Jimmy asked Joe to take this package that he's got and just see if he could drop it off to Jimmy's sister. And so Joe agrees to this for some reason. But while he's on the flight, Susan, the secretary, points out that's a little bit suspicious, and maybe Joe's been tricked into being some kind of drug mule kind of person. So Joe, in a little bit of panic on the flight, decides that he better open the package and make sure there's not cocaine or something in there.
This is a very Hitchcock moment.
We're
pretty sure there's going to be something really bad in here.
Yeah, and in fact, all there is a book. It's a book about how to play tennis really well. So it's a little bit of a tattered book. It's not in the best quality, but yeah, it looks completely legit. And there's like a little note in the book which says from Jimmy to his sister saying, "Oh, I hope you like Joe, the man who dropped this book off. It's very nice, and perhaps I'm in love with him. I don't know." Anyway, so Joe gets the book. Joe gets back to the United States, back to New York, and he takes the book and he drops it off at the apartment of the sister. Doesn't get to meet the sister, but just drops the book off.
Had they already made a dinner date at this point?
They had made a dinner date, okay. Yes. And Joe. But there's no follow-up on the dinner date. Joe doesn't get a phone call from Jimmy, doesn't know what's going on. So the day after they were supposed to have this dinner date, Joe tracks Jimmy down in some high-end car dealership place. And there's kind of this awkward confrontation between the two of them. They're both a little bit annoyed. They're both a little bit annoyed with one another. Jimmy says, "Oh, you're supposed to give the package to my sister." There's lots of arguments over the details of exactly what was said, which is very, very Mamet style piece of dialogue.
It's irritating, actually. It's like, well, this is a silly piece of script writing, but it's there to. You can tell the characters are irritated with each other, so it has a good effect.
Yes. So anyway, so they have a little bit of a squabble, and Joe heads back home, and as soon as he rides back home, Susan pops over just on a random bike ride. I think she came over to visit him, and she's just about to seduce him, and then the phone rings, and it's Jimmy, and Jimmy's called to apologise and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you were right. Let's have another date."
Susan's been trying to get him into bed since the start of the movie,
Yes.
so she's been trying to charm him the whole time in various different ways, and he's totally not interested at all. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I'm onto something. Anyway, so Joe and Jimmy are about to meet up with Jimmy's sister. They're all going to have a game of three-way tennis somehow. I'm not quite sure how that works. But when Joe turns up to meet up with Jimmy, Jimmy's sister's sick apparently, so she can't make it to the tennis match. So instead, Jimmy and Joe, they hang out. There's a little bit of flirting between the two of them.
There is not.
Jimmy opens a Swiss bank account for Joe.
Oh.
That's very flirtatious. And they go out to dinner at an exclusive club, and Jimmy makes Joe a member with basically just a snap of his fingers. He says, "Here, sign this certificate and you'll be a member and you can come along to this exclusive nightclub." And they chat and they have dinner, and Jimmy basically advises Joe, check what's going on with the process. The business may not have rights to the process. You may have more rights than you think. You don't have to wait for them to give you, a bonus of some kind, whether it's stocks or shares or cash. The nature of the employment at that point, it's very vague to me. I don't really understand.
He seemed to be a contractor, but I think he's actually employed. Who knows anyway? Jimmy's telling him you may have copyright over this process.
Yeah. So Joe decides that because Jimmy's sister's sick, he's going to, because he's such a nice guy, he's going to go give her some kind of get well gift. He's never met her, but he still thinks that's perfectly appropriate. And that's when he stumbles onto the fact that Jimmy's sister doesn't exist at all. He takes this gift to the apartment block and the doorman gives it to a woman far too old to be Jimmy's sister.
Here we discover Jimmy doesn't have the imagination to make up a fictional woman. He's actually chosen a real woman's name.
Yes. Yeah. So the fact that Jimmy's lied about the sister makes Joe very suspicious. So Joe contacts Pat McCune, this is played by Felicity Huffman, who's most recently been in the news because of college admissions scandal. She actually went to jail for like 12 days or something.
Did she really?
Yeah, she tried to get her daughter into a college by paying people.
Desperate housewives.
Yes. Anyway, in this movie, Felicity Huffman's on the right side of the law. She's an FBI agent, so she's there to.
We only know she's an FBI agent because Susan made friends with her on the island and said, she really is. She gave me her card.
Yes. So the business card, Joe takes the business card, goes see Susan, gets the business card, calls up Pat McCune, FBI agent McCune, and they come up with this plan. They've been tracing Jimmy for ages, so they're going to do a little bit of a sting on Jimmy. They tell Joe that Jimmy will organise some kind of catch up the next day to meet with the lawyer, and that's when they'll do the sting. He'll wear a wire, and they'll sort it all out. So the next day, Joe meets up with the rest of the FBI. They attach a wire to him. The FBI boss explains the details of what's going on here, and he basically explains this is the Spanish prisoner con, the titular Spanish prisoner con. Jimmy's come up with this scheme, and so all Joe has to do is to take the process over to Jimmy, and then the instant Jimmy either threatens him for it or bribes or offers to bribe him for it, then they can pounce upon him and arrest him, and that'll be the end of it. So this all sounds good. Joe he heads off, he sneaks through a local park carousel, and he waits for Jimmy. He's guided there by a whole heap of park staff who give subtle hints, who are apparently FBI undercover agents. Jimmy never shows up, however, so that's a little bit strange. And when Joe checks out his book, the book which contains the details of the process, he realizes it's been switched somehow, presumably by the FBI agents, who of course aren't FBI agents at all. They are in on the entire scam. So Joe's lost the process.
At this point, everyone in the town seems to be in on this scam, right?
There are a lot of people in on the plan.
They're going to have to share this money out between multiple people.
Yeah, luckily it's worth so much money, the process.
Yeah.
So McCune was in on it, Jimmy was in on it, and now Joe has lost the process. So Joe goes to the police, tries to tell the police what's happened here. The police, however, tell Joe that he's actually in more trouble than he thinks because...
well, they assume he's stolen it for himself,
yes,
don't they, and
yes.
sold it. So,
and they've got all kinds of evidence for this because, wouldn't you know, there's a Swiss bank account that he's opened just recently.
Yeah.
Also, there's some kind of certificate that he recently signed, which is not a membership to a club at all. It's in fact a request for extradition, or no, what's it called? Extradition? Asylum, a political asylum in Venezuela. So, he's in a lot of trouble there. The police say, Joe's boss thinks that he's probably sold it off to Japanese interests because there's a whole heap of talk throughout the movie about, Japanese tourists everywhere, and Joe's boss thinks they're all, well, maybe not all of them, but some of them could be corporate spies because the process is so immensely valuable. Joe tries to tell them all about Jimmy, but Jimmy's apartment never existed. They go and investigate this club where he gained membership. That never existed either. It's just a normal everyday restaurant. So Joe doesn't have a photo of Jimmy to give to the police. He doesn't have anything with his fingerprints on it. So
he also doesn't have a single emotion through any of this.
No, he's very cold. Anyway, he gets bailed out and he goes to visit his colleague George from the beginning of the movie, or the lawyer, the company lawyer.
It's actually his best friend too, I think. Or one of his friends.
Yeah. So maybe George got him this contracting job with the company. Let's assume that. And he finds that George is dead. George has been stabbed.
Of course he is.
And George has been stabbed with Joe's knife because Joe had a very distinctive, very large knife, which he had in the Boy Scouts. And he had it in the Boy Scouts. It was like a sword for a Boy Scout. It's an enormous knife.
It was really big. And of course he puts his hands all over the knife immediately, as you do.
Yeah. So if his fingerprints weren't on his knife before, they're certainly on it now. And he's got blood all over his fingers and
he
hands
leaves
as
his
well.
glasses there. Yeah. He steps in the blood, leaves footprint. He does everything that you could possibly do. And the police have turned up now.
Yeah,
they're outside.
The police have turned up, so he ducks out the back and he flees and spends most of the night riding around on a subway, trying to work out what to do. That's when he remembers that Susan's keen on him, so he goes off to visit Susan, and she believes him, of course, because she's good. So that's when they realise that there might be footage of Jimmy back at the island because there were security cameras in the resort where they stayed. So if they go back to the original island where they started the movie, then they could be able to get some security footage, take that to the police, say, this is the guy, this is the one who conned me. Maybe that's some kind of defense. So they head off to the airport, but there's police blockades everywhere, which they kind of scam their way through with some comic arguing.
Some comic acting.
Yes. Yeah. And then so they decide that instead of going to JFK Airport or whichever airport it is in New York, they'll drive all the way up to Boston, down to Boston. They'll drive all the way to Boston. Because it's St. Patrick's Day and the Boston police celebrate St. Patrick's Day hard, presumably, so they'll be able to get past them. And they kind of do. Joe goes to Boston airport security and he kind of helps a mother who's berating her child for getting dirty fingerprints all over his book, and she berates him so often about the fingerprints on the book that Joe...
Finally, the penny drops.
The penny drops for Joe that the original tennis book that he got might have Jimmy's fingerprints on it. So
that's only after Susan also does a precursor on this. Wouldn't it be good if we had fingerprints somehow? Yeah.
So Joe completely abandons the idea to fly back to the island. He's just going to go back and get the book and take that to the police and get them to dust that for fingerprints. Which was probably a good thing because we do discover as he changes his mind here that the camera bag that had been given to him by
Susan gave him a bag. I can't quite remember why, but anyway.
Susan gave him a camera bag to take. I'm not quite sure why either. But it had a gun smuggled into it. So she's tried to frame him as well. Susan's a bad guy. Everyone's a bad guy. Poor old Joe's just been conned by everybody. He doesn't realise yet that Susan's not on his side.
In retrospect, it would have been better for her to put a knife into that, surely.
You would think so,
Anyway.
yeah. But who knows? Anyway, so the two of them decide they're going to get a ferry all the way back to New York. Is that how that works? I'm not entirely sure.
Yes,
but they decide they're going to catch a ferry. Susan sneaks off, presumably to consult with people about what she should do now that Joe's not flying to the flying back to the island. And while she's gone, that Joe discovers that the plane ticket that Susan gave him was a plane ticket to Venezuela. So now he's on to Susan. He knows she's bad. Nevertheless, he helps her get onto a ferry with him. And who should be waiting on the ferry? Jimmy. And Jimmy's got a gun. Jimmy's going to kill Joe. The final step of this con is apparently to make Joe's death look like a suicide. And Joe, thinks about escaping from this boat, doesn't think of jumping into the water and swimming away. Maybe he can't swim. Who knows? And just as he's trying to flee, one of the Japanese tourists that are on the boat affixes a wire to him and says, "It's okay, you're doing well. Just speak to Jimmy and get the location of the process from him." So Joe goes along with this plan, tries to speak to Jimmy, but then the horns of the ferry just cover the sound of Jimmy's explanation of where the process might be hidden, and he's just about to shoot Joe, and that's when one of the other Japanese tourists jumps up and shoots Jimmy with some kind of tranquilizer dart, and that's basically it. These Japanese tourists, they weren't tourists at all. They were U.S. Marshals. At least one of them, with a very thick American accent. They've been monitoring Jimmy for months. They take Jimmy away. They arrest Susan, and that's it. That's basically the movie.
We find out that Joe's boss was behind the whole con.
Was behind the
Not that
entire
anyone
thing.
really cares who was behind it all.
Everyone was involved in the con, and that's essentially it.
Yep.
So there we go. That's the movie.
Wow, you did well with that. That's very
quite
convoluted.
all right, even if I forgot Susan's name several times. Nevertheless.
Well, I mean, the central plot was very Hitchcock, wasn't it? It was a bit like the early English films where some dude, some handsome young man gets sort of deeper and deeper in trouble and is aided by some attractive random passing woman that he's just met who hates him to start with and then likes him or something like that. It's like the 39 Steps.
Yeah, it's very it was very Hitchcockian. I think we mentioned at the time that the actual what was going on wasn't revealed as quickly as Hitchcock would reveal it. Hitchcock would have made it much clearer what was going on in the plot, whereas Mamet decided he was going to keep most of this a mystery, all these cons within cons within cons.
Yeah. We kind of find out at the same time as Joe does for most of it. And then right at the very end, we're a little bit ahead of him, but not by much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had some notes later. I think it was actually timed pretty well. A lot of the times throughout the movie, we kind of said something, and then like a minute later, like that's what actually happened. And that I don't think that's because we were particularly clever. I think he just timed it that well that everyone was getting it at pretty much the right time. So I think that was quite well done. The title, The Spanish Prisoner, refers to a specific con. This is explained in the movie. That's explained by the bogus FBI head dude, who's played by Ed O'Neill, who's Al Bundy from Married with Children, probably in the peak of Married with Children era at that time, or maybe just off it. Anyway.
That should have been a clue that he wasn't what he seemed.
Definitely not, yeah. And he's presumably the one who switches Joe's red book with the empty red book, the book that contains the process, because he's the only other one who gets a hold of it. He takes it away as Joe's getting the wire on him.
As soon as he takes it, we know that there's a chance this book, something will happen to this book. It's like, don't let that book out of your hands. Yes. And he hands it over to this dude. And there's actually no moment where it could have been switched.
No.
That
was very, because he puts it up on top of a windowsill and then pretty much brings it...
There's a very quick cut, but I don't think there's...
Maybe he spoke to George, the famous stage magician. Maybe that's where that came from.
Yeah, maybe.
Some kind of sleight of hand. Anyway, The Spanish Prisoner is basically where the con artist works on behalf of a wealthy, important person who, for whatever reason, is trapped somewhere, and they
presumably Spain.
Yeah, presumably Spain, and they the con artist tricks the mark into, I just need some money to get them out, and as soon as we get them out, you'll be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. And these days the Spanish Prisoner is pretty much always a Nigerian prince.
Yeah,
that you'll find in your spam folder. So go have a look in there. Although it was a bit of a meta con though, wasn't it? Because the Spanish Prisoner wasn't at all the con that was being played here.
No, not really. I mean, look, maybe was the beautiful sister, the rich sister, the Spanish prisoner? Was it kind of like, my unattached sister has a lot of money, all you have to do is befriend her and she's just waiting for a nice young man like you?
Yeah, but that
it's not the same con though.
That was, so there were multiple levels of con. That was the con that we're led to believe that Jimmy was going to play, but that wasn't that wasn't the actual con. No. So that was the con.
It was a pretend.
That was the pretend con. That was the fake con. Yeah.
It was still a pretend person.
Yes.
So yes, it's like the Spanish. It's like this person doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. Anyway, the actual con that took place, did that make any sense at all?
No, nothing made sense in this movie. It was glorious, really. I mean, the other thing, look, there was lots of plot holes.
Yeah.
Why did actually Joe take the book and offer to deliver it if they were all going to have lunch together anyway the next day?
Yes.
What the hell was that all
Yeah,
about?
so you're supposed to meet
Give it to
Jimmy
her
the next
yourself.
day. Yeah, you're going to be back here. Why? Yeah, so that should have been a clue.
Yeah.
There were thousands of strange things about this thing.
I mean, the plot holes were very a true Hitchcock. I mean, Hitchcock has a lot of plot holes as well. So I felt like that was a
with
good
Hitchcock,
tribute as
aren't you
well.
supposed to realise them when you get home and you open the fridge door? You
Not
wait a
as you
second,
go.
not
That's right.
a minute before they happen. So
Yeah.
why is there a note in the book? Like, if he's not supposed to, is he supposed to open the package? If so,
Yes.
why?
Yes, he's supposed to open the package.
To see the note, and that makes him closer to Jim, feel better about Jimmy, because there was the note which said how wonderful he was.
It's like sucking him in. It's like the
Then why didn't they just use a less tattered book so he might not switch it out and have the copy of it to take to the police later?
that was very crazy, and it was such a weird book too. Like who wants an old vintage book in 1997 even? Like that didn't really make much sense anyway.
And what if Joe had found out that the sister wasn't real at the beginning? Maybe things would have still happened. Maybe he just goes to
that was the whole point. I think he was supposed to
find it.
He was supposed to be suspicious of Jimmy as early as possible.
Right.
That would have helped the overall plot, because the quicker he contacted the FBI agent, the better.
Yeah,
so I feel
guess.
like he was too dumb to actually fall for the. So he was supposed to fall for the. He's supposed to discover the sister and contact the FBI agent. Right?
But if he did that too early, then he wouldn't have been able to get the treaty, the Venezuela asylum request, and the Swiss bank account set up. So he wasn't supposed to find it out. He was supposed to wait till at least one dinner meeting where all these anyway.
Yes, it was really crazy. I mean, the switch out point too. Like, that was obviously at that point he should have realised that someone at the office must have been in on it.
Yes.
How else would they have known about the red book?
Yes, exactly.
So how did they have an identical red book if it wasn't? There were only 2 or 3 people in the office who could have been in on it, and Susan was an obvious choice.
Yeah, Susan or his boss, or presumably George, who's been sick. So
that never occurred to
we
me.
supposed to think that George was a suspect because he was mysteriously sick as soon as he got back. He just disappeared from the movie until he showed up dead.
George catching the flu on the plane and then being sick, and then the sister being sick. Was that just George is sick, therefore when we shouldn't be too suspicious of the sister being sick?
I don't.
That was
maybe
very strange that George had the flu, unless he actually had the flu and he couldn't actually film. That was weird, and perhaps it was just so that George wasn't around to complicate the plot further.
I guess. Or maybe he had a stage magician job to get back to, so he just left the movie for a bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, so once Joe worked out that, all right, Jimmy's bad, McCune is also in on it, so the cops were never going to believe him. They were going to kill George, and they were going to do that, so Joe would go find Susan, and her plan was to get him to the airport so he'd get busted there.
He was always supposed to trust Susan. So Susan was constantly trying to make him feel like, trust me because Jimmy's dodgy.
Yeah.
He didn't even come from the seaplane. Jimmy's dodgy. He gave you a book. He could be a drug smuggler. That was definitely a plot to get
was
Susan.
Was she just like cleaning things up? Like was she was, but at some point the final part of the plan was, all right, we've got him framed for this murder. If the cops don't catch him, then Susan's going to come in and kind of guide him into trouble. What was the point of her?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think she was the mastermind, wasn't she?
Well, I think that she certainly came across as the mastermind.
If this was Ocean's 11, she was.
So yeah, I just don't really understand the third level of the con where she's needed to also do the con and take it, and there are many places where she could, she didn't have to put the gun in his bag to get him caught by the.
No, but the con kept going wrong, so she had to keep inventing new ways to, it kept twisting, so she had to keep inventing new ways to get him caught.
Yes, I guess, but she could, as soon as he showed up at her apartment, she could have just snuck out, called the cops, and they could have come and arrested him.
Yeah,
and that would have been plausible. As soon as she snuck the gun into his thing, no, she had to have this plan ahead. She had a ticket to Venezuela.
Yeah, the ticket to Venezuela was from.
So that wasn't ad-libbed.
No.
So she had that on her.
They had that all already. They prepared ahead.
They're very prepared. Like that. They were the Boy Scouts. They were being very prepared.
I mean, I think the plan at George's apartment was really just to frame him for the murder because the police definitely turned up.
Yes.
And she had rung the police at that point.
Yes.
It was very, very weird.
And given all the last minute changes in the plan, how on earth was Jimmy on the ferry?
Yeah, that's a massive plot hole, right?
And how are the Japanese tourist U.S. Marshals also on that ferry waiting to?
I mean, why?
Well, I guess they were following Jimmy, but I still don't know how Jimmy was on the ferry.
I mean, I guess maybe the plan all along was for Susan to meet Jimmy on the ferry and for them to just travel back. So maybe that was their plan the whole way along.
Was it Susan's idea to go back by ferry? Maybe it was. I don't remember that bit. So yeah,
could have been.
Possible.
But he was already on the ferry waiting for her, and as it turned out, they didn't know that Joe was going to realise this small detail. And
well, it's a
come
good thing
off
he
the
had
plane.
his gun on him, isn't it?
Yeah, well, presumably he would always have his gun on him. And I didn't really notice the Japanese tourists everywhere, but apparently if you rewatch the movie, they are in a few places.
Yeah.
The pretend
Japanese.
Well,
they certainly made a big deal of it was like borderline racist how much they were going on about the Japanese tourists. I'm glad that had a payoff at the end, which was fine. That was all good.
So, I mean, Mamet did say in a couple of interviews the ending was designed to get the viewer thinking. And I did read one speculation that maybe it was just Joe was in line for an FBI job and this was all a massive test.
Yeah. Well, if he was in line, he was so dim that he's definitely not he was not a bright spark, poor old Joe.
And that would explain why they left him at the end on the pier, just totally left him for dead.
Yeah.
That was really great.
Yeah.
What was the give me your camera test from Jimmy all about? Like, you just took a photo, now give me your camera for $1,000. What was that all about?
I think that was part of Jimmy didn't want any photographic evidence of him. So, like, no fingerprints, no photographs of him. So he didn't want the photo to be taken of him. So he didn't want Joe to have the photo.
Right, yes.
So I think that kind of works.
Yeah, that does kind of work.
Yeah.
But the thing that doesn't work is if the US Marshals had been following them for months, why did they let George die?
Poor old George. Do we know who actually killed George?
We have no idea.
Was it Jimmy?
It was probably the US Marshals.
Ah, well, yeah.
I think
Let's assume it was the Marshals.
Maybe it was Susan.
That makes as much sense as anything.
We have no idea who killed him.
Well-
and also, why was the cop from New York just shows up at the end, like in Boston? What was he doing in Boston? Like, it's not even his precinct.
He was in Boston because they're having great parties there for St. Patrick's Day. He's no dummy.
Yeah, that was really crazy. Look, there were lots of bits about this movie that I really loved. The bits that I particularly loved were when he was heading for the sting, where he thought he was going to wearing the wire with the fake FBI agents, and all the bystanders were all fake FBI agents, and they're all saying hello to him. So they were sweeping the ground, and they were selling popcorn, and they were all pointing him in the direction of the carousel. And then even the ones that weren't doing that, he was expecting them to, which was also glorious.
Yeah,
I mean,
there were so many people involved in this con. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and the other thing I loved was Martin. Wasn't he a great criminal? He was a good criminal mastermind, wasn't he? Steve Martin?
He was. Yeah, Steve Martin. Yeah, he was very good.
He was a Hitchcock villain. He was like a smooth Hitchcock villain.
He was very good.
Yeah, perfect.
I particularly enjoyed Steve Martin. He was he was very slimy, very sneaky.
Yeah.
But I did like that. That. As we said earlier, like we weren't led to believe that Mamet didn't try and make us believe for the entire movie that he was secretly a good guy when we were onto him.
I think we knew he was a villain at the start. I think you knew, almost everyone you knew was a villain, or you suspected everyone of being a villain right from the start.
And that's kind of built into the title. I mean, the title of the movie is the name of a famous con, so you know there's going to be a con going into it. Yeah. So you're suspicious. It's just how do you have to be suspicious of everybody? And the answer, it turns out, is yes you do.
Because in fact they're all criminals. There was nobody except maybe George, who was left at the end. Yeah. And he could have been in on it too. We just don't really know. Yeah. I mean, everyone is corrupt. Everyone's a crook. Yeah. To the very last minute.
Yeah. And as new characters came along, we started off being suspicious of all of them. It was just like, the FBI agent. This is not how FBI agents work, is it? They don't show up in a van in the middle of the night and ask you your mother's maiden name.
Why did he believe that? Yeah, that was really crazy.
Yes.
I think the ending was fantastic too. I really loved, because we thought at the ending, oh, this is just turning into a ridiculous load of rubbish. And then at the very end, there was another ridiculous twist that really we were laughing out loud that. It was just fantastic at the
Yes.
ending. That Texan accent on the sharpshooter, it was hilariously kind of bizarre and it was really weird. And the fact, as I said before, the audience being let in on the secret before Joe quite knew. We could see that the gun had been discovered, and I think it was great. And actually, the closed circuit TV, in the hotel, and then again in Susan's apartment, and it was all this sort of different perspectives on, and then the fact that we saw the X-ray machine of the X-ray machine at the airport a number of times, like you saw it about 3 times, and every time you saw it, you thought, oh, what are they going to find? What's inside this book? Actually, the book went through. Remember the first time, and we thought, what are they going to find inside this parcel? And then, by the end, you just think, oh well, this purse is going through the TV, the closed circuit, the X-ray machine. What's going to happen here? And there was in fact a gun in it. That was great.
Yeah, so it was quite entertaining. Like, even if it didn't make a lot of sense, it was very entertaining right along the way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I didn't like though, things that I didn't like, the characters they weren't very likable. None of them were particularly likable. No, maybe Susan excluded.
I thought Susan was very entertaining.
Yeah, but I didn't really give 2 tosses for Joe. Well, if he doesn't get out of it, he's pretty dumb.
Joe was very stupid. Joe didn't pick up on much at all.
He was kind of boring and not at all charming. I mean, he wasn't like Hitchcock wouldn't have cast. He wouldn't have done that degree of boring scripting for Joe. Who would Hitchcock have cast in that role as Joe, you reckon?
I don't know.
Of that era, would it have been Richard Gere?
Oh, okay.
Like, it would have been someone a lot more charming. Hitchcock would have gone for a star. Like, he always wanted a star in those. Yeah, so the audience was sympathetic. Yeah, Clooney.
Clooney might be too old.
I reckon Harrison Ford. It would have been a Harrison Ford.
Don't they have to be a bit younger to make it work? Like, I think they have to be a younger.
Oh, but that didn't matter for Hitchcock, though. I guess, there were a lot of very old.
That's true. Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio then.
Yeah, okay.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt would be good.
Yeah, younger. You're probably right. In the first half, there were so many things we had to remember. So it was there were just sort of plot point after plot point. Yep. There were lots of different things. Yeah, like
lots of Chekhov's plot points.
Yes, definitely. The certificate signed in the club, you knew that was coming back later.
Yeah.
There was but what I didn't like was it was very heavy-handed. So some of this precursor this foreshadowing was just so obvious.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know how deliberate that was. Like
it was just labouring the point. There was Chekhov's spare plane ticket right at the start that she put in her photo album.
Yep.
There was we save every videotape in our hotel. Oh, that's unusual.
Yeah,
yes,
well, we have to.
No
for
one
insurance.
else does it. Yeah, that's right. That was and then
although that didn't really come back. Like that was a reason why he went to the airport.
Yeah.
But he didn't really have to go to the airport to make the plot work. So that was just that was some kind of diversion. I guess.
The fact that he remembered that that they had that look, it's the FBI agent saying, so what is this process? No, don't tell me. If it's a company secret, you can't tell me. It's like, that was really laboured as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't like it. I reckon it was Mamet splaining.
Mamet splaining, yes. Yes.
Mamet splaining. So it was just when the old dude got the flu, as we mentioned before. And you know what? That occurred to me. It was almost a pandemic. It was like
I was thinking that too. I was like, this is less comfortable. Why is he on this plane? Get off the plane.
Yeah, get off the plane. Don't touch your nose. Every second person had it.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And we do have Mamet's dialogue, which we mentioned earlier, which is very distinctive. It's even like got its own name.
Right.
It's not Mamet splaining, but it is known as Mamet Speak, which TV Tropes defines it as. It's got several qualities, only one of which was particularly prevalent here. So generally, Mamet Speak is fast. It's loaded with jargon. It's almost always vulgar, although not in this case. This was very clean, like no swear words. This wasn't Glenn Ross. This was
his only PG rated film.
Yeah. But the one that the other characteristic of Mamet Speak, which this one did have a lot of, was frequently focused on semantics. So people being very pedantic about what words mean, and this was happening right from the beginning of the movie. When he's buying the camera, there's debate: is this a gift? Do you want my camera? Like there's all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
Susan points out very early on that it appeared Jimmy came from a seaplane. Well, he didn't actually come out of the seaplane. He came from the direction of the seaplane.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of various discussions about that. And that went on all the time. Even like the argument that Jimmy and Joe had was all about what specifically Jimmy said. Do I give it to your sister? Do I drop it off to your sister? It was like very pedantic semantics about the words, which, that's I guess that's what you get when you sign up to a Mamet movie.
Yeah, well, and also that those short sentences interrupting each other and sometimes not even relating to each other.
Yeah.
There were a couple of weird examples. I've written one down here where Susan says, "Little pictures have big ears," and then Joe says, "Loose lips sink ships," and it's like, what the hell did that mean? that wasn't even in context. It didn't mean anything. And so some of it was just baffling.
Yeah.
Baffling and meant nothing. And that, again, apparently all of his movies, I haven't seen masses of them, but all of his movies have that short sentences interrupting each other. Yeah. Hitchcock had that too, but they were always witty.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of the one-liner speaking.
Well, he did pull out some, attempts at witticisms and words of wisdom, but they were usually just quotes from other people. And it was usually George. Maybe they ran out of quotes for George to say, and that's why George didn't appear in the rest of the movie.
He did only speak in quotes at the start, didn't he?
Yes.
Someone said when I was doing the research that actually Mamet talks that way.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So maybe
that explains why he writes that way then.
For him it's quite natural. The other weird thing was the use of formal names. There was a lot of Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Ross, Mrs. De Silva.
Yep.
It was always a lot of Mr. and Mrs. as well, which I found was really... Yeah.
Did it annoy you? Because I don't actually mind stylized dialogue if that's the part of the movie. If I have to suspend my disbelief over how people talk, that's that's minor compared to the other suspensions of disbelief.
And it's classic sort of noir dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really very much like an old detective flick.
And I guess the other way that Mamet Speak sort of works here is because it, if the dialogue does sound a little bit artificial and forced and stilted, it's partly because virtually every single character is also playing a role in the movie. Like they're not speaking naturally because they're trying to potentially play a role. They're trying to play a role in this con. So maybe that's it's not why he writes that way.
No.
He writes that way, but it works a little bit better in the context of a movie where everybody's playing a role as a con artist.
That's right, because the FBI agents are trying to act as FBI agents. They're not actually really of that type. And so they do come out with a lot of cliches. Yeah. We do have some lines. I've got some lines here for you. So at the very start, this is the lawyer, George, says to Joe, "Worry is like interest paid on a debt that never comes due," which I think is also a stolen quote.
Almost certainly. Yeah. I think every line from George was stolen from somewhere. Very good.
What
Any
else
others?
have you got? Have you got Jimmy?
I've got one from Jimmy. Jimmy advises Joe when he's trying to convince him that he shouldn't just let the company decide how much they're going to pay him for the process. Jimmy says, "Always do business as if the person you're doing business with is trying to screw you, because he probably is. And if he's not, you can be pleasantly surprised." Words of wisdom
as Jimmy
from Jimmy
tries to screw him.
Yeah.
So, that's true. And again, Jimmy says to Joe, "A man said it's all right when your hobbies get in the way of your work, but when they start to get in the way of each other, that's a problem."
Yeah, that sounds like pillow talk.
Yeah. And George, early on, before he disappears with the flu, says, "Beware of all enterprises which require new clothes."
Okay, fair enough.
Why did he buy new clothes? He did go off and buy new clothes at some point.
Well, George won money at the casino and he gave a whole heap of cash to Joe. And then Joe used that cash, didn't want his share of the money for some reason.
He used it to buy the ticket for the secretary to go in first class.
Yeah.
This makes me think George was in on it.
George might have been. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, let's assume George was in on it and then the others just cut him out. That's one way to get more of your share of the money from the process.
Yeah, but he was a magician, wasn't he? So that was a fake knife.
He faked his death. Yeah. Good work, George.
So Joseph said to Susan at one point, "Do you mistrust everyone?" when she was talking about the seaplane, and she just said, "No, just strangers."
Yep. Good tip from
good tip
from her.
The sharpshooter at the very end, when Joe said, "What would have happened if you failed to shoot Jimmy with that stun gun?" And the FBI agent said, it would have been back to the range for me.
Yeah. And she said that in a massive, clearly overdubbed
Texan accent. Yeah. The FBI agent at one point, this is part of the cliche one-liner, said, "You're in a lot of trouble. Not from me, from him." Meaning Jimmy, the con man.
Yes.
And at the very end, the detective who was kind of out of place from New York, travelling to Boston, at the very end as they were leaving him, says, "Nobody looks at a Japanese tourist."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. See, it all comes together. The Japanese tourists working undercover as U.S. Marshals or vice versa.
Yeah. So as a Hitchcock movie, not enough good lines is my takeaway there.
Yeah.
Not enough witty lines.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
And I was writing them down, but not so
Not
many.
enough?
No.
No.
Does it pass the best Bechdel test, though?
It doesn't. I mean, it's really only got 2 named women in it, and I mean, they speak to one another off screen, but certainly not, within hearing range of us.
Yeah, and they're presumably speaking about Joe.
Presumably, yeah. If they're both in on the plan to con him, then he's probably the topic of conversation, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to technology. How could modern technology impact / improve / change this plot?
And I love the fact that we have trouble sometimes imagining how modern technology could improve a 1930s movie. We had no trouble at all with this one.
Yeah.
We can easily step forward, 24 years or something.
Yeah. Yep.
What did you come up with for this one?
Well, a significant portion of the plot revolved around waiting for Susan to get the film from her camera back, which was just adorable. So, these days, of course, you just take it on your phone and you're done. But which would have made it a little bit more challenging for Jimmy to just demand. People wouldn't just hand their phone over, but I guess he could offer them money to delete the photo off their phone immediately. Maybe.
That's right.
Yeah.
It would have been, give me your phone, and then the phone would have been thrown in the ocean or something like that.
Yeah.
It is interesting. The other key plot point was the fact that they used 2 cameras, didn't they? And that was sort of, she took a photo of him, he took a photo of her, and only one of the cameras got handed over. So she still had photos to develop.
Yep.
So they each had their own cameras. Again, adorable.
Yeah.
But these days they would have probably just used one camera and taken one phone and taken a selfie, wouldn't they? They wouldn't have had to have taken a photo of each other. They would have
take a selfie.
Yeah, take a selfie and then airdrop the photos to each other.
Yeah.
Or immediately uploaded them to Instagram and then
you're
can't
in
be
trouble.
deleted.
Yeah. Yes.
There would have been a photo match of the supposed princess, and then the plot would have been out.
Yeah, and another point was because this movie took place prior to September 11th, the airport security was a little bit casual. It was just like, well, you can go through whenever you want. You're not entirely sure where you're flying to. Doesn't matter. Through you go.
Yeah.
And I think Susan convinced Joe that he could fly back to the island using her spare plane ticket from earlier because he'd given her the first class ticket. Were you able to just hand off plane tickets regardless of whose name was on them back then?
And regardless of the direction that they were travelling?
Yeah, that was very strange.
Yeah.
So maybe that was a 90s thing. It certainly wouldn't fly today.
Yeah, definitely not.
Any others?
And what about the process? It wouldn't have been written up in that little red book, would it?
No, that would be encrypted on a USB stick or something. You wouldn't, or it'd be on a laptop. There'd certainly be no chance of anybody getting to it without some kind of password. Although the password security was still pretty lax back then. He just said, "What's the name of your favourite dog growing up?" or something. And
it was Paddy every time.
Yeah.
And I think even in 1997 it would have been on a freaking disc.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, old school. Joe was old school.
So it was a little bit like, are we in the 1930s here? He's writing it in a book with tiny little formulas.
Well, that brings me to my the reverse question. We usually ask, how would a Hitchcock movie go with modern technology? How would a more modern movie go? Would Hitchcock have been able to make this movie in, say, the 1950s?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only thing you really lose is the cameras, the portable cameras with ease of that. Although they did have cameras back then, but I don't think
they would have been developing their own film. That would have been the
yeah.
only difference. It would have had to have been an amateur photographer who then was taking photos for fun and developing their own film and discovering something in the background.
Yes, and we would have lost the security camera element of the plot, but presumably, maybe there's a register they could sign or something at that hotel. There would have been Hitchcock would have been able to write his way around that. And apart from that, I don't think there's too much else that that he would have needed to change to
No,
make
that's
it back,
right.
30 years earlier.
Yeah. There was still a lot of train travel. They went by ferry, car, plane. All of that would have been fine if it was set in the 50s. The other thing I think would have been great that we had a lot of Susan putting stuff in photo albums.
Mm-hmm.
These days, that would just be putting it on Facebook or on Instagram instead of actually in the album.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have definitely been. I feel like in modern times there would have been fewer blackboards. I mean, they were writing on blackboards, weren't they? Or was it a whiteboard or a blackboard?
No, it was a blackboard. Yeah.
It was a blackboard.
I'm sure it was a blackboard.
Even back in 1997, they had PowerPoint. They wouldn't have been doing a presentation to their supposed investors on a blackboard.
We did. Well, although we did get a shot of Jimmy's laptop at one point, and it was a weapon. That thing. It was a big chunky piece of metal.
It was.
Yeah, with a very small screen and
a small green screen.
Although he was still able to log into a Swiss bank account and set one up in Moment.
That's true. That was impressive.
Although maybe he'd already set that up. Who knows?
Yeah, could have.
He didn't seem to need a lot of information to set one up on his. He could have just made up the password.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
Maybe that was all pre-set up.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, tributes, homages, remakes.
Well, it was absolutely full of. This was one of the delights of watching this, actually,
Yes.
because it wasn't just giving the impression of a Hitchcock, as is suggested by all of the literature. When you look, you go, oh yeah, it's like a Hitchcock. No. There were lots of Easter eggs in here.
Yeah, there were plenty of.
They
Hitchcock
were
Easter
planted.
eggs.
I mean, Mamet's planted things here, and it was glorious seeing.
Yeah, that was good fun.
Some of the more subtle ones, like the hidden key on top of the door outside George's apartment.
By the way, this is spoilers for various Hitchcock movies, but
that's true.
Presumably, if you're a patron and you're listening to this, then you've probably seen the movies.
Seen most of them. But that's straight out of Dial M for Murder. There was no question, because there was no moment where really we would have known that key was there. That was a total surprise that he grabbed that. We were delighted at that one.
Yes, and working his way through a carousel, that was so Strangers on a Train.
Absolutely.
That was fantastic.
In fact, Strangers on a Train must have been one of Mamet's favourite films, because there was a long moment of him having keys in his hand as he crossed the road, the risk that he was going to drop the key down the grate, very similar to the lighter in Strangers on a Train. There were lots of moments actually from Strangers on a Train in this movie. The tennis again.
Yep. There's plenty of tennis references.
Yeah.
There was also an innocent man being framed for a stabbing murder, so that was very North by Northwest-ish.
Oh, yes.
There were, again, a few other North by Northwest elements.
Particularly putting his hand all over the knife, the close-up of the hand on the knife.
Yep.
There was a close-up at some point of the glasses, which was, again, very Strangers on a Train.
Yes.
A close-up of his glasses in there. The man on the run, of course, the very North by Northwest, very 39 Steps. 39 Steps, the police coming through the train. So when he's escaping through the subway system, there's a woman on the train who notices this dude has blood on his hands.
Yep.
A policeman's getting closer in the next carriage.
Yep.
And you think that he's going to be apprehended or the woman's going to sound the alarm, but no, he escapes.
Jumps out.
Yeah. That was great.
The stabbing of George took place, and there was a shower running in the background.
Oh,
so
yes.
that was very psycho-ish.
It was very psycho, the shower running, and he really does check the shower.
Yep.
He goes to check the shower. That was glorious. We were trying to remember the movie with a seaplane, but that was actually Champagne. I mean, we could probably have delved in even further if we wanted to. The fact that the reveal at the end, where the villain Jimmy's sort of telling the plot of here's what I'm going to do with the process, and this foghorn sounding over the top of that is straight out of North by Northwest.
Yep.
When the detective is revealing the plot as they're walking
That's
past
right.
the plane propeller, and you don't hear a thing about it.
That's fantastic.
It was a very funny moment. It was beautiful tribute. So lots and lots of. The other one I liked was out of Vertigo, that Susan was very much the mousy female friend Midge.
Yes.
The one that unrequited love for this kind of undeserving hero.
Yep.
And,
although Midge with an edgy Midge.
It was Midge with an edge, definitely. Yeah.
All right. So riddled with Hitchcock references.
Yeah.
So we should probably go through the Hitchcock movie checklist very quickly.
Definitely.
The MacGuffin.
Yes, how have we got this deep in without mentioning the MacGuffin? The MacGuffin was revealed in the first minute of the movie.
And you spotted it like the instant the process was mentioned. It's like, that's the MacGuffin. It's like, yeah.
That's the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
They will never tell us what the process is. That was too much telegraphing there. That was
Well,
ridiculous.
It was still
fun.
Yeah,
It was fun.
Who cares what the process is?
Yeah.
Even like as he's scribbling in his book as they're heading into the meeting, like you look at the symbols. It's just mathematical gobbledygook. You didn't even try to make it have any semblance of mathematical sense. There was just random symbols.
There was never really any moment where we found out even what the company did.
No. Did they mention? Well, I'm not sure I heard this properly, and I didn't have time to go back and check. Did they mention something about global warming, or did I imagine that? Maybe I imagined that.
No, I think they might have mentioned that at some point. But it was very unclear, and there were a lot of moments in the office where the secretaries were talking to the dudes, dudes were wandering around, they were having meetings. There were a lot of scenes in the office where there was just nothing revealed. It was just generic office.
Yes,
which was really great. Actually, that was very Hitchcock as well.
Yes.
I don't think the process was as good as a Hitchcock MacGuffin. So there are a couple of, it was kind of like I'm so clever, here's my deliberate MacGuffin. I'm going to mention the process so many times that the audience kind of knows that I'm deliberately withholding it. It's like, okay. Yeah, it would have been actually clever if we found out what it was.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the Hitchcock MacGuffins, they kind of melt into the background and the characters are pursuing them, but the audience just doesn't care because it could have been anything. Here they mentioned it so often it felt like we were missing out.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I could say. Yeah, that's a fair argument. What else have we got? We've got the lead character on the run. So Joe doesn't have to go on the run for quite a while, but by the time George gets stabbed, he's got to go on the run because he's been framed at that point.
Definitely. Innocent man on the run.
Yes.
Yep. Classic.
We got the characters with elements of good and bad. We do have a few of them in here. Most of the various con artists pretend to be good for at least a brief period of time.
Susan's probably the best one there.
Yeah.
There's a bit of, lots of befriending by Jimmy here. I'm going to help you and look after you and set you up with my sister and take you out for dinner and, I'll invite you to my club. And he's definitely doing lots of grooming there at the start. Definitely.
And also
Joe too. I mean, he's a good company man to begin with.
Yeah.
And then he kind of allows himself to be corrupted by greed and how much money can I make out of this to some extent towards the end.
Yeah. And it got in reverse, the Japanese tourists, which were being disparaged throughout most of the movie, actually turned out to be
the saviors.
The saviors at the end. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, they come good.
The ordinary man with a mistaken identity is Joe. Joe's an ordinary man. He's perhaps the only person in the movie who's not a con artist.
Yeah. Well, he's a classic ordinary Joe, right?
Yes, very much so. And he's also a literal Boy Scout. I mean, he's got the knife, so he's far too trusting. He's a little bit of a goody two shoes. He tries to fix the book up, and he
doesn't want an office romance.
Yeah, he doesn't want the office romance. He doesn't. Yeah, he takes a get well gift, which I don't think I've ever heard of a get well gift, but for someone you've never met anyway.
Yeah,
it's very forward.
He's also he's more virtuous at the start when he's wearing his glasses, and then as he goes on the run, he kind of loses the glasses. He changes his outfit a bit. He becomes a little bit more rough around the edges, which was a good touch.
Yes. So most of the time, his good deeds help him uncover the plot. So but by being such a good guy, he discovers that the sister doesn't exist, and he's reminded about the fingerprints on the book when he tries to help the mother with the crying child.
There's never any emotion throughout any of these reveals at any point. Actually,
no. But and most of the time when he discovers these things, it's probably only because the con artists they're just desperately tapping their feet, waiting for him to discover it so they can get on to the next level of their con.
Yeah.
We also have the smart young woman.
Yeah, Susan. So she's improvising as she goes along as Joe makes mistakes.
Yeah, she's got to clean everything up, all the mistakes that Joe makes.
Yeah.
So she improvises the how to get away from the police when they pull them over. She comes up with this impromptu argument that they have,
which should have clued him into what a good actor she was. She's playing a good part here. I wonder what other parts she's playing. The oh my goodness, I love you kind of part was really, that he never doubted that one either.
No. Bumbling cops.
Oh, there were lots of them.
There were lots and lots of bumbling cops. There were the bumbling cops who didn't believe Joe's story when he first told them. They're slightly more forgivable because Joe's made a lot of dumb mistakes.
That's right.
Joe's been very, very competently framed. And
The con men have done their job well there.
Yeah. But then later when they're pursuing him, the police officers who are specifically looking for him pull him over, go around to his side of the car, get a good look at him, and because there's an argument going on, they say, all right, off you go.
Yeah, oh no, this is a domestic, so we'll clearly let him go. It can't be him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have staircases. There are stairs up to Susan's apartment. Nothing particularly interesting in that. Although we do get a good shot of them, which reminds us of the video footage, I guess.
That's right. She has a camera in her apartment, which is kind of odd.
She lived above a bakery, which was a key point. I'm not quite sure why they banged on about that point so much. But
that was so that he could, with a lot of fanfare later, when he spotted something, he could be reminded of the
he could have just
location.
remembered. I mean, she'd been coming on to him the whole movie. If I was on the run, I'd probably go to the woman who'd been volunteering to help me throughout whatever happens to me.
Yeah.
Anyway. The other tropes. So
it also reminds me too of the movie where she's just stabbed someone or found the knife and is wandering around the city in a daze. Which movie is that?
Was that Murder exclamation mark?
Yes. There was a lot of that when he was wandering around the city sort of looking up at signs. And
yes, that's true.
It was very reminiscent of that as well. Mm.
So another Hitchcock reference there. We also have random other tropes that I spotted over at TV Tropes. Got better manhandle the murder weapon.
Yeah, of course.
Joe fell into that one. It was here, I swear. That's when Joe's trying to prove...
This was his apartment and this was the club he took me to. Yeah.
The Massive Multiplayer Scam, which is a great name. There's so many people involved in this con. Yeah. Off-screen teleportation, which they believe is the only explanation for what happened to his book, the process book.
That's great.
And Refuge in Audacity, which is the previously mentioned, there being having such a bitter argument or a bitter squabble that they were able to flee the police with Refuge in Audacity.
Yeah.
So there you go. I think that's pretty much the end of what we have to say about this particular movie.
Yes, it was a fantastic choice. Thank you to the patrons who suggested this one, and it was wonderful. And hopefully we can do another one that is reminiscent of Hitchcock at some point.
Yes, definitely.
And if you spot any other Hitchcock references throughout this movie, we'd be really fascinated to find out what else you spot, because I was not keeping a really close eye out for them, and even now I'm kind of reminded of, wow, I wonder if he'd seen that movie, and was it deliberate or not? Was it accidental?
And just a final thought, usually we do a ranking of the movies. We're not really going to rank this among the actual Hitchcock movies, but just a general thumbs up or thumbs down on the movie. What's your overall verdict? I
think it's thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
It's a marginal thumbs up for me.
Marginal thumbs up. Yeah. Thumbs 10 degrees up maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's a definite thumbs up. It's a definite thumbs up. Definitely not as good as a Hitchcock, but definite thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm giving it a thumbs up too. I enjoyed it. It was very silly. The con made no sense, but it was entertaining.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you shortly. That was The Spanish Prisoner. Next month on the free feed, we'll have another episode from the back catalogue, Peeping Tom from 1960. And of course, if you're on Patreon, you can listen to that immediately, as well as a whole heap of other episodes. We're also about to drop the first episode of Season 6, our discussion on Marty Supreme from 2025. If you want to listen to this and all our other episodes, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod, and for just $2 a month, you can get early access to every movie we cover, as well as the opportunity to suggest future movies for us to watch. Go on, pay the $2.
Roger, pay the $2.
If you're not in a position to support us financially, that's fair enough. You can also help us out by leaving an honest 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. That will help new listeners find us. You can also tell a friend who watches too many old movies. Sharing episodes on Blue Sky or Facebook costs nothing, and we're grateful for all of it. And of course, if you have thoughts on this or any other of our movies, you can find us at hitchpodonline.com. That's also how you find us on Blue Sky or Facebook. Plus, you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. Thank you for listening.